Welcome to my channel, Commanders of History. Today's story will shake your heart and remind you that true strength doesn't need noise or pride. It lives insolence in discipline and in the courage to rise above humiliation. So sit back and feel this story unfold like a movie. Because what happened on that military base changed everything forever. It began on a foggy morning at Camp Raven, a military training facility known for its brutal discipline and cold-hearted recruits. The sun had barely risen when a group of soldiers gathered at the main gate, laughing among themselves. They were young, proud, and arrogant. They had seen dozens of guards come and go, but today there was something different. A new female security guard standing by the entrance, quietly checking IDs. She was wearing a plain uniform, not the decorated one of a high-ranking officer. Her face was calm, unreadable, her hair teed back under her cap. She didn't look intimidating. She looked ordinary, and that made them smirk. "Look at her," one of the recruits whispered. "Probably just got hired to keep the front gate clean." Another chuckled. "She doesn't even look like she could handle a weapon." They laughed louder when she turned her gaze toward them, her eyes steady, unshaken. She said nothing. She simply extended her hand, signaling for their ID cards. The silence that followed felt heavier than her presence. Private Harris, the most arrogant of them all, leaned forward and said mockingly, "You sure you know how to use that scanner, ma'am? Or do you need a man to show you how it works?" A few of his friends burst out laughing. The guard didn't react. She scanned their IDs one by one and handed them back. "You're clear," she said softly. But Harris wasn't done. "You know, this base has standards. Maybe one day they'll actually hire real soldiers for this post." For the first time, her eyes met his. There was no anger in them, no frustration, just a quiet confidence that unsettled him. "You'll find out soon enough what this base really values," she replied, her voice calm as the morning air. They walked away, still laughing. But something about her tone lingered in Harris' mind. That evening, while their recruits trained in the courtyard, a black helicopter roared across the sky. Everyone stopped what they were doing as it landed near the command building. From the chopper stepped out 3 U.S. Navy SEALs, men whose presence demanded respect. Their uniforms bore insignias most recruits could only dream of earning. Whispers spread fast. "Why are the SEALs here? Is there an inspection?" The base commander rushed out to greet them, followed by several officers. Their recruits watched from a distance, curiosity and tension in their eyes. Then something unexpected happened. The female guard from the gate appeared, walking calmly toward the landing zone. Everyone froze. She walked right past the recruits, her boots hitting the ground with sharp precision. Harris muttered, "What's she doing here?" And then the unthinkable happened. The 3 SEALs, men who commanded the respect of entire battalions, snapped to attention. One of them saluted her. "Good afternoon, Major." The courtyard fell silent. Every soldier, every recruit, every mocking voice from that morning, all frozen in disbelief. The female guard returned their salute, her expression still calm. At ease, she said, "Let's begin the inspection." A murmur ran through the group. Harris' jaw tightened as the truth sank in. The woman he had mocked, the one he thought was just a gate guard, was actually a major, a decorated officer with a background no one had dared to imagine. For the next few hours, the SEALs and the major moved through the base, checking units, inspecting weapons, and evaluating discipline. She spoke little, but Harris caught everything. The soldiers noticed how even the highest-ranking officers stood straighter when she passed. Her authority didn't come from shouting her orders. It came from quiet command. During the debrief, one of the SEALs addressed the recruits directly, Major Claire Benton. He began, "Served 10 years in covert operations. She's led missions most of you will never hear about. She's lost people, saved others, and earned the kind of respect that can't be bought or demanded. It's earned through blood and loyalty." Every word felt like a hammer striking Harris' chest. That night, as the camp settled into silence, Harris couldn't sleep. The image of her standing at the gate haunted him. The memory of his own ladder burned inside. He had mocked someone who had sacrificed everything for her country. The next morning, he stood by the entrance before dawn. When she arrived, he stood at attention. "Good morning, Major," he said, his voice trembling. She looked at him quietly. "At ease, soldier." "I wanted to apologize," he said. "I didn't know who you were." She nodded slowly. "You didn't have to know who I was to show respect, Private. You just had to remember what this uniform stands for." Her words hit harder than any punishment. Days passed. The major remained on base, training recruits and observing their progress. But her methods were different. She never raised her voice. She led through example. When others ran 10 minutes, she ran 15. When others lifted weights, she carried the wounded. She didn't command attention. She earned it. One afternoon, during an exercise in the training field, a recruit sprained his ankle. The others hesitated, unsure of what to do. Without a word, Major Benton knelt, lifted the soldier onto her back, and carried him across the muddy terrain to the finish line. The soldiers who had once mocked her now looked at her with awe. That night they gathered in the mess hall. Someone whispered, "Did you know she lost her entire unit in Syria during an ambush but still went back to rescue the wounded?" Another added, "She got promoted after that mission. She never talks about it, though." Harris listened in silence. For the first time, he understood what strength really meant. It wasn't about muscle or ego. It was about courage when no one's watching. Later that evening, Major Benton stood outside the barracks, looking at the stars. Harris walked up, nervous but determined. "Major," he said quietly, "you changed the way I see this place, the way I see respect." She looked at him with a faint smile. "That's good, Private, because this uniform isn't about rank. It's about purpose. Remember that?" He nodded, his eyes glistening. "Yes, ma'am." Weeks later, the SEALs returned for a final evaluation. When they announced the results, the entire base erupted with pride. Camp Raven had achieved the highest operational readiness score in years. Before leaving, the SEAL commander turned to the recruits. "You're lucky," he said. "Not every base gets to be led by someone like Major Benton. She doesn't just train soldiers, she builds warriors." As the helicopter lifted off, Harris and his fellow recruits watched her standing there, her uniform shining under the sunlight, her expression calm, her presence commanding. That day no one laughed. They stood taller, prouder, more disciplined, not because they feared her, but because they respected her. Months later, when the new recruits arrived, Harris found himself posted at the gate. He stood where she once stood, scanning IDs, watching the same kind of arrogant smiles he used to wear. But no, he understood. One young soldier joked, "Bet this job's easy, huh?" Harris looked at him and smiled. "You'd be surprised who stands behind this gate." And somewhere deep down he felt a quiet gratitude for the woman who had taught him that real strength doesn't need to prove itself. It just stands tall, unshaken, even when the world laughs. As the sun set over Camp Raven, the flag waved in the wind, and every soldier who'd once mocked that female guard now carried her lesson in their hearts. She didn't need applause. She didn't need recognition. Her name, her rank, her courage, they would echo in silence through every soldier who learned what true respect means. Because Major Claire Benton wasn't just a soldier. She was a symbol, a reminder that the loudest power in the world is the quiet dignity of those who stand for something greater than themselves. So remember this, never underestimate the quiet tones. Behind their silence may lie the courage of 1,000 battles. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next episode of Commanders of History.